Good morning, guys. A number of you asked me to make a video regarding how to insert a graph into Microsoft Excel and also how to create your table so that we can record the data that we are going to collect during an experiment. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open Excel. So hopefully you can follow my cursor and I click on Excel. Then I choose my first one, which is called a blank workbook. Right over here, blank workbook. There we go. Now, Excel will open you a blank workbook. Now, usually for the independent variable, now you need to remember that an independent variable, it starts with the letter I. Independent, it starts with the letter I and it because, well, how I remember it, it starts with the letter I, and the way that I remember it is that I can change this variable. So in this case, we are going to do an experiment where we drop a ball from a different heights, and we're going to measure how high the ball bounces back. So in other words, the one that we change, the one that I, for independent I change, is the drop height. And that is going to be in centimeters, and we put that unit in brackets behind our name. Okay, so how I change the width over there, you can see your cursor will change when you go onto the top of the column, and then it changes again to this weird cross-like arrow thing, and then you can change the width quite easily. Okay, so we're going to start by dropping it at 100 centimeters, but no, you do not type the cm in there. You've already put in the cm or the unit into the heading that is above here. The reason why you cannot put the cm in there is that then changes the whole system and it becomes a text box, and we don't want a text because Excel needs to do calculations, and if you change that to text it won't be able to use it as calculations. Okay, so we go 100, then we go 80, and we go 60, and we go 40, and we go 20. Now the amount that we change our independent variable, this is called the range. So our range is going to be from 100 centimeters down to 20 centimeters, or from 20 up to 100. That is called the range. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heights that we're going to do. Now the dependent variable is the one that we're going to measure. And the dependent variable depends upon the independent variable. In other words, how much I change my independent variable will change my dependent variable. Okay, so here we go, variable. My spelling today is terrible. Anyways, and that's going to be our bounce height. And our bounce height is going to be in centimeters as well. There we go. So, now, something that I want to add to this is that we're going to have to make an experiment more reliable. We need to do repeats of the different heights. So I'm going to say bounce height 1 and press enter. Make it wider. But I'm going to repeat every one of these until I get reliable results. Not 3 times, not 5 times, but until I get reliable results with a minimum of 3. Okay, so as you can see, when I move right on this block that I selected, there's a tiny little block right there. And see how my cursor changes. So now I can just click on it and drag to the side, and see it immediately picks up. I want bounce height 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go 6 for now. Okay, and then when I want them all to be the right width, I simply select all the columns and I double click where my cursor changes, and there we go, easy peasy. Now, the bounce height is the stuff that we are going to record. Now, I'm going to make up numbers. We're going to record those numbers today, but I'm going to just make up numbers here. So let's say it bounces back and we measured the first one at 75 centimeters, the next one at 77, the next one at 89. Ooh, that looks like an outlier, doesn't it? Yeah, because that's not close to these. 76, 73, and now we can see we've got at least 3 that is good, so we don't have to do bounce height number 6. Okay, so we go for the next one. Now again, as I say, remember, this number 89 is most likely an outlier. Now we go to the next one, 80, and it bounces back to approximately 60 and 63 and 58, and that is relatively consistent, so we can stop after 3. And when we drop it from 60, the first one bounces 20, and then 35, and then 30, and then 22. This is really strange. Something is happening. Maybe it bounced on something to give these lower numbers. We need to investigate to see what we are not controlling, because remember, we also need to control our controlled variables. So now we make sure that we bounce it nice and accurately, and we get 33. Suddenly now we have 1, 2, 3 that are nice and consistent, but because we have 2 outliers, it's a good idea to do another one. And we do it again and we get 34. So we controlled the surface that we bounced it on better, and that was one of our controlled variables. So these 2 again are outliers. Okay, so now we go to 40, and for 40 it bounces back about 15 centimeters and 17 and 18, and at 20 it bounced back 10 and 8 and 4. Okay, so because most of ours is going to be on 3, I'm going to click on this column, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to insert a column. Can you see how it moves everything down? Now I'm going to take the outliers, because remember this one and this one was an outlier, as well as that one. So I take this and I move that to this column over here, and we'll call that outliers. Okay, and now we can drag this back in, and then there's 3. Okay, if we want to include the 4th one, we can absolutely do that, but for now I'm just going to use 3, the 3 that are nice and close together. And over here this 20 was an outlier, so I drag that to the outlier column, and I grab one of these 2 and I bring it in. So now we have 3. It would have been better actually if we did put this one in and this one in to make our test more reliable. Okay, and this one is also an outlier. Alright, so here we go. Now, Excel has an interesting function. When you click on your home button and it comes up with your menu, some of you might have the word AutoSum there, others don't. But AutoSum, it looks like the Greek letter E for echo. And when you click on the pull down arrow next to it, there's something called average. And you click on that average. Now it highlights everything that it wants to put in the average for you, but can you see that it also highlighted the drop height? And that's our independent variable, so we definitely don't want that. Now we click on the first column, click and hold, don't let go, and we drag across the 4 that we want, and we press enter. There we go, there's our average. Average bounce height in centimeters. And we're going to use this average bounce height to draw our graph with. Now the previous one was an average of 4, this one is an average of 3. So the easiest way to do this is we can drag functions down. A function is simply the formula. So when you go back to that, I highlighted this, and then I go and I can say, okay, fine, it turns into that little plus button, and I can drag that down to where I want it to be. See that? Okay, so when you have that, we now can see that this one, the next one, is the average of when you click on it, it shows you that it's all these, and that one is one too many. So we want to change that to just be those three there. Oh, sorry. We can go back to home, pull down, average, and these three, and enter. Okay. The next one is 33, and we know that it's right because it's got all four. And these two are going to be the same. So I can simply go Control C for copy, and V for paste, and another Control V for paste. Now there's our averages. And you can see these averages have a lot of decimals after the point. But that's fine. If you want to change that, you highlight it, you go back to your home screen, and over here, see these two buttons? It says move the dot this way or that way, and it just makes it a little bit neater. So let's just use 2 significant points. Okay, so this is our average bounce height, this is our drop height. If you wanted to put that in, now we're going to put that into an Excel chart or graph, but the Americans like to call it a chart. I'm just going to pin this. Now we go insert, and then we go to charts. Can you see this one on the insert tab? Charts is here in the middle. And then if you look carefully, this one is called XY scattered. Now because we have data that is continuous data. Discontinuous and continuous are two different types of data. Continuous data is data that we can measure, and we can measure it very accurately to some decimal points. Whereas discontinuous data, I like to say, is like blue cars. If you're counting all the blue cars, you can't have 0.5 of the blue car because it was, I don't know, turquoise or something. It's either blue or it's not. So you count a 1 or a 0. I always joke and say you can't have 0.5 of a zebra unless you go to the butcher, and that's not cool. So now for the continuous data, we always use the XY scatter, and you click on that little pull down and you use this type of XY scattergram. For your discontinuous data, when you're counting whole things, you're going to use a column graph. Some people call it a bar graph, but that's a mistake. It's actually a column graph because the bar graphs are flat. So a column graph. But in our case, we measure the data, and we can measure it very accurately. So we can go back to 63.2 or however. So that means we have to use a XY scatter graph. Now put your cursor down here, click there on the XY scatter graph, and click on that. First thing, please move this out of the way so that you can see all your data. Now remember, we are only going to plot this one for our independent variable and this one our dependent variable. Okay, so double click on that block, and when you've double clicked, it's going to come up with select data. So we click on that. Now the first one, chart data range, that's going to be your name for the chart. So we will say my name is average bounce height. So I can just click on whatever I want and it will put that in as the name for my chart or my graph, whether I choose this one or this one or this one, and then I go back to my little arrow there. Okay, now we add a series. So this is series 1. We're going to add that, and the series name, we'll just make it average bounce height again. And then for the x-axis, we go and we select the values under drop height. Okay? Then for the y values, now the reason why we use the x-axis, we always use the independent variable. Your independent variable always go on the x-axis. That's the horizontal axis here at the bottom. Okay. And then our y-axis is going to be our average bounce height. So we click on that arrow, we go and we collect our data. And we click back on the arrow. Now we have our data, and you can see there very clearly it creates a nice line. We have this extra one here which we don't need, and we'll just remove that. Now we say OK, bang, and there we have a very neat chart that goes all the way from 80 down to 0, which I find interesting, and where we have 100 over here, and that was our maximum drop height. So as our drop height increases, our dependent variable, which would be on that side. Don't you think it would be a lot clearer if we actually have chart titles? Yes. So we click on this plus sign there, and see there where it says access titles? Click on that. Now, access titles, double click simply on where it says access title until you highlight the whole thing, and then you type in, this is bounce height, and it is in centimeters. And the x-axis is drop height, and in a bracket that is in centimeters. Beautiful. Now when somebody looks at this, they can immediately see this is the average bounce height. Our drop height changed, and as we changed the drop height, so did our bounce height. We can decide we might want to take out the grid lines, and also the other grid lines. Another thing that we can do is actually, if you click on your chart, here at the top there's various different ones that will change the appearance of my chart. So we can do that or that. I imagine most of you are going to go for that. But it is up to you, but it seems that it is obviously, yeah, so you can customize it a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to go with a standard one, and which is the one that it is already. Alright, and that is how you insert a graph or chart into Excel, and also how you collect your data. I really hope this video helps, and remember, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.